You have been lied to your entire life about cantaloupe. Every single time you brought home a bland, watery melon from the grocery store and left it sitting on your kitchen counter hoping it would get sweeter, you were wasting your time. Penn State University published it in plain English. A cantaloupe will not get sweeter after it is picked. Not 1 day later, not 3 days later, not ever. The sugar stops the exact second the stem is cut from the vine. That means every cantaloupe you have ever bought was already as sweet as it was ever going to be the moment you put it in your cart. You just did not know how to pick the right one. I am going to change that today in the next few minutes. My name is Amos Yoder. I am from Pennsylvania. I grew up in the Amish community. My grandfather grew cantaloupes. My father grew cantaloupes. I grew cantaloupes before I could see over the kitchen table. Every summer of my childhood, the smell of ripe melon was in the air by late July, and it did not leave until the first frost came through the valley. My grandmother could walk up to a pile of melons at a roadside stand and put her hand on the sweetest one in the bin within 10 seconds. She never explained it in scientific terms. She did not need to. She had the feel. She had the nose. She had the eye. But everything she did, everything the old Amish women did when they picked a melon, it all has a scientific reason behind it. I am going to teach you every single one of those reasons today so that you never bring home a bad cantaloupe again. Whether you shop at Walmart, Kroger, Costco, Aldi, or a roadside stand in the middle of nowhere, these tests work everywhere because they are based on what the fruit itself is telling you. You just need to learn the language. Part 1. The big lie. It will never get sweeter. Let me say this one more time because this is the foundation of everything that follows. A cantaloupe does not ripen the way a banana does. A banana you can buy green and leave on the counter, and it will turn yellow and sweet because bananas convert stored starch into sugar after they are picked. A cantaloupe cannot do that. The sugar inside a cantaloupe comes from the leaves of the vine. The leaves take in sunlight. They turn that sunlight into sugar through photosynthesis. Then the plant pushes that sugar down through its internal transport system, through the stem and into the fruit. It is a live pipeline. The moment a farmer cuts the stem, the pipeline is severed permanently. No more sugar will ever enter that fruit again. What does happen after harvest is the melon continues to release a gas called ethylene. Ethylene is a natural plant hormone. It will soften the flesh, it will deepen the color, it will make the cantaloupe smell more fragrant. These are real changes, and they trick people into thinking the melon is getting riper and sweeter. It is not. It is just getting softer. The sweetness was locked in the day it was picked. A team of researchers in France studying Charente cantaloupe confirmed that sugar accumulation in the melon is ethylene independent. That means even though ethylene changes everything else about the fruit after harvest, it has zero power over the sugar level. The sugar is what it is. So when you stand in the produce section at Walmart next Tuesday, understand this. You are not shopping for potential. You are shopping for a finished product. If the cantaloupe is not sweet right now in that bin, it will never be sweet on your counter. You have to learn to find the sweet one before it goes in the cart. That is the whole game. Part 2. The stem end. Slip versus clip. This is the single most important test, and it takes 2 seconds. Walk over to the cantaloupe bin, pick one up, turn it over, and look at the stem end. That is the spot where the melon was attached to the vine. What you see there tells you almost everything you need to know. When a cantaloupe reaches full ripeness on the vine, something remarkable happens. The fruit forms a separation layer, right at the stem. The plant is essentially saying, I am done feeding this fruit. It is ready. And the melon slips right off the vine with almost no pressure. An experienced farmer can walk through a field and just lift the melons gently and the ripe ones fall right into his hand. This is called full slip. When a full slip cantaloupe reaches the store, the stem end will have a clean, smooth, slightly sunken scar. It looks like a belly button, an innie. There's no piece of stem sticking out. There's no jagged edge where someone cut it. Just a smooth, round depression. That is what you want. That is a melon that the vine released on its own because it was done. It reached maximum sweetness and the plant let it go. Now compare that to a clipped melon. A clipped melon is one that was cut from the vine before it was ready. The farmer decided based on a schedule or a shipping deadline that it was time to harvest. He took a knife and cut the stem. When you see a cantaloupe with a piece of green stem still attached or a rough jagged scar where the stem was forcibly cut, that melon was removed before the plant was finished loading it with sugar. It will not be as sweet. It might look the same on the outside. It might even smell decent, but the sugar content is lower because the pipeline was cut early. In the old days, every Amish woman and every farmer's wife knew this without being told. You looked at the bottom of the melon, and if the stem was still there, you put it back. If the belly button was smooth and clean, you took it home. It is that simple. 2 seconds. That one test alone will eliminate half the bad cantaloupes in the bin. Part 3. The netting, reading the scars. Every cantaloupe you have ever seen has that rough web pattern all over the outside. Most people think it is just the way the skin grows. It is not. That netting is scar tissue, and it is one of the most fascinating things in all of agriculture. When a cantaloupe is about 10 to 12 days old, the flesh inside the fruit starts growing faster than the skin on the outside can stretch. The inside is expanding and the outside cannot keep up. So tiny cracks begin to form on the rind, starting at the blossom end. This was documented in a study published by the National Institutes of Health. The researchers wrote that these cracks lengthened, branched, and intersected over time. But the plant does not just let those cracks sit open. It responds immediately by producing a waxy, waterproof substance called suberin. Suberin is the same compound you find in cork, the same compound that makes potato skin tough. The plant pushes suberin into every crack to seal it, to keep the moisture inside and the bacteria outside. Over the course of the growing season, those sealed cracks harden and rise up above the surface of the rind. That raised web of hardened suberin is what we call the netting. It is a record of how vigorously that melon grew. A Japanese research team published a paper in 2022 describing the exact physics. They wrote that the growth rate of the epidermis cannot keep up with the growth rate of the meat. Many cracks begin to occur hierarchically. A liquid called suberin is secreted from the inside, filling the gap to prevent moisture loss. Now here is why this matters to you in the grocery store. Heavy, raised, well-defined netting that you can feel with your fingers means that cantaloupe grew hard. The flesh expanded aggressively. The plant was healthy and well-fed. That is a sign of a melon that had the energy and the nutrients to produce a lot of sugar. Light, flat, barely visible netting means the melon did not grow with the same vigor. It may have been water-stressed at the wrong time. It may have had poor nutrition. It may have been picked before the netting had time to fully develop. Either way, it is not what you want. When you run your hand over a cantaloupe in the store, you want to feel those ridges. You want the texture to be rough and prominent. The uglier the web, the better the melon. My grandmother used to say, the prettiest melons are the worst. The ones that look like they have been through something are the ones worth eating. She was right. The science proves it. Part 4. The smell test. Your nose knows. Pick up the cantaloupe. Turn it upside down. Find the blossom end. That is the bottom of the melon, the opposite end from where the stem was. Put your nose about 2 inches from that spot and inhale. A ripe cantaloupe produces over 240 different volatile aromatic compounds as it reaches maturity. Those compounds escape through the blossom end because the rind is thinnest there. When you smell a sweet, musky, slightly floral scent, that is the melon telling you it is ripe. That aroma means the flesh inside has developed its full sugar and its full flavor. Harold McGee, the most respected culinary scientist in the world, the man who wrote the book on the science of cooking, specifically instructs people to smell the blossom end, not the side, not the stem end, the blossom end. Now, here is where most people go wrong. If you pick up a cantaloupe and smell nothing at all, put it back. A cantaloupe with no aroma at the blossom end was either picked too early or is an underripe long shelf life variety that never developed its full volatile profile. No smell means no flavor. It is that direct. On the other end of the spectrum, if you pick up a cantaloupe and it smells alcoholic or vinegary or overwhelmingly sweet in a cloying fermented way, that melon is past its prime. The natural sugars have started to ferment inside the flesh. It might not be dangerous, but it will taste off. You're looking for the middle, a clean, sweet fragrance that makes you want to eat it right there in the store. That is the one. My people can smell a ripe melon from 3 feet away. When the cantaloupe patch was ready in August, you could smell it before you turned the corner on the path. A melon that does not announce itself is a melon that is not ready. Part 5. The weight. Density does not lie. This test is pure physics. Pick up 2 or 3 cantaloupes that look roughly the same size. Hold each one in your hand for a moment. The ripe one will feel heavier than you expect. It will surprise you with its weight. That heaviness comes from water and dissolved sugar packed tightly into the flesh. A cantaloupe is about 90% water. When it has fully ripened on the vine, every cell in the flesh is swollen with juice and sugar. That density translates directly into weight. If a cantaloupe feels light for its size, one of 2 things happened. Either it was picked before the flesh had time to fill out completely, or it has been sitting in the store too long and has started to dry out from the inside. Either way, it will be disappointing. I have watched Amish women at farmers markets pick up 6 melons in a row and put 5 of them back without a second thought. They are not guessing, they are weighing. The heavy one goes in the bag, every time. This is one of those tests that feels too simple to be real, but weight is the tiebreaker. When 2 cantaloupes look the same, smell the same, and have the same netting, the heavier one wins. Part 6. The color beneath the net. Do not look at the netting itself. Look at the skin underneath it. The background color of a cantaloupe tells you how long it spent ripening in the sun. A cantaloupe that matured fully on the vine will have a golden or creamy tan background color beneath the webbing. That warm color comes from the breakdown of chlorophyll, the green pigment that all plants use during photosynthesis. As the fruit matures, the plant pulls its resources back from the fruit, and the chlorophyll fades away, revealing the warm tones underneath. If you see a cantaloupe and the background color under the netting is still green, that melon was pulled from the vine too soon. The chlorophyll had not finished breaking down because the fruit had not finished ripening. It does not matter how good the netting looks or how nice it smells. Green under the net means it was not ready. Now I have to be honest about one thing. The grocery industry has been shifting toward a type of cantaloupe called the long shelf life variety. These melons are bred to survive weeks of shipping and storage. They naturally retain a greener appearance even at maturity. So color alone is not enough at a big box store. You need to combine it with the other tests I'm teaching you. But at a farmer's market or an Amish roadside stand, the color test is gold. The deeper the gold beneath the net, the longer that melon soaked up sunlight on the vine and the more sugar it stored inside. My grandfather would hold a melon up in the morning sun and turn it slowly in his hand. He was reading the color. He was looking for that warm golden glow that told him the sun had done its work. Part 7. The press test. Finding the give. Hold a cantaloupe in one hand. With the thumb of your other hand, gently press on the blossom end. That is the bottom of the melon. You are looking for a very specific response. A ripe cantaloupe will give slightly under your thumb and then spring back. There should be a little cushion there. Not soft, not mushy, just a slight yielding. Like pressing on a tennis ball that has lost just a tiny bit of air. If the blossom end is rock hard with no give at all, the melon is not ripe. The flesh inside is still dense and firm, and it has not developed its texture. Remember, it will soften on the counter over a day or two from ethylene, but it will not get sweeter. So a rock-hard melon is a gamble. It might have been picked at 3/4 slip and still have decent sugar. Or it might have been clipped early and have no sweetness at all. If the blossom end is mushy and your thumb sinks in and does not bounce back, the melon is overripe. The cell walls in the flesh have broken down too far. It might taste fermented. It might be mealy. The texture will be off. You want the middle, a slight spring under the thumb that returns to its shape. That tells you the flesh is at the perfect stage where it is tender and juicy, but still has structure. Every Amish woman who ever picked a melon ran this test without thinking about it. They did not call it the blossom end firmness test. They called it the give. Does it have the give? If it had the give, it went in the basket. Part 8. The shape in the bees. Look at the overall shape of the cantaloupe. A sweet cantaloupe should be symmetrical. It should be evenly round or evenly oval with no lopsided bulges or flat sides. The reason for this goes back to something most people never think about: bee pollination. A cantaloupe flower opens after sunrise and closes permanently that same afternoon. It lives for a single morning. In that narrow window, bees have to find the flower and transfer enough pollen for the fruit to set properly. If a flower gets heavy bee traffic, pollen is distributed evenly across all the ovules inside the flower. The fruit develops uniformly in every direction. The result is a symmetrical melon that ripens evenly and accumulates sugar consistently throughout the flesh. If a flower gets poor bee traffic, some ovules get pollinated and others do not. The fruit develops unevenly. One side swells more than the other. The sugar distribution is patchy. You end up with a lopsided melon that has sweet spots and bland spots in the same fruit. University of Georgia researchers documented this directly. They found that increasing honeybee hive density in cantaloupe fields improved yield, weight, and sweetness. More bees meant sweeter melons. Oregon State University recommends at least one full honeybee colony per acre during cantaloupe bloom. Now here is where the Amish connection runs deep. The Amish have kept bees for as long as they have farmed. Almost every Amish farm in Pennsylvania and Ohio has hives within sight of the vegetable gardens. Those bees are not just making honey. They are pollinating every cantaloupe flower on the property. That is why Amish grown melons are consistently sweeter than what you find at a chain store. The bee density around an Amish melon patch is many times higher than what exists on a commercial farm in California or Arizona, where cantaloupes are grown in 1,000-acre blocks. So when you're standing at the bin, look for symmetry. A round, balanced, even melon is a well-pollinated melon. A lopsided one is a melon the bees did not finish. Part 9. The industry secret. 3 cantaloupes in one bin. This is something most Americans have never heard of, and it changes the way you shop. There are 3 different types of cantaloupe being sold at grocery stores right now, and each one behaves differently. The first type is called the Western Shipper. This is the traditional cantaloupe that your parents and grandparents knew. It slips from the vine when ripe. It has the classic flavor and aroma. The stem scar test works perfectly on it. The problem is, it only lasts about 2 weeks after harvest. By the time it travels from the ranch to the cooler to the truck to the store shelf to your kitchen, you might only have a few days left before it goes bad. Because of that short window, the industry started replacing Western shippers with a second type called the long shelf life Harper. These are now the workhorse of the cantaloupe industry. Syngenta, one of the largest seed companies in the world, developed these varieties specifically for big retailers. These melons do not slip from the vine. They are cut off while still firm and slightly green. They have very hard flesh that survives weeks of shipping. But here's the trade-off. They often lack the peak flavor and aroma of a vine-slipped traditional melon. And the stem scar test does not work on them because they were never meant to slip. On these varieties, the ripeness indicator is the netting creeping up toward the stem end. The third type is called extended shelf life. These are a compromise. They do slip from the vine at maturity. They have better flavor than the long shelf life types, but they hold up longer in shipping than the traditional Western shippers. You will find all three types mixed together in the same bin at your grocery store with no labels telling you which is which. That is why you need all 7 tests. No single test works on every type, but when you run all of them together, the sweet ones reveal themselves no matter what variety they are. Part 10. Walmart, Kroger, and Costco. What you need to know. Each of these stores sources cantaloupes differently, and that affects what you find in the bin. Walmart was one of the first major retailers in America to commit to certified food safety audits for their produce back in 2007. Their cantaloupes are predominantly long shelf life Harper types, bred for maximum durability. When you're shopping at Walmart, focus on the netting, the aroma, and the weight. The stem scar test will be less reliable because most of their melons were clipped, not slipped. Look for netting that extends up toward the stem end. Check the blossom end for aroma, and lift several melons to find the heaviest one in the group. At Kroger, you will find a mix of Western shipper and extended shelf life types depending on the season and your region. Kroger tends to have faster produce turnover than Walmart, which means their melons may be fresher on average. The stem scar test works better at Kroger because they carry more slip type varieties. Run the full battery of tests here. You have a real chance of finding an excellent melon. Costco sells cantaloupes in bulk packs or larger sizes. They buy in massive volume. Their purchasing power means they sometimes access higher quality lots, but they also need fruit that survives the warehouse model. Here is a trick specific to Costco. Because they buy such large volumes, the cantaloupes in any given display are almost certainly from the same harvest lot, the same field, the same day. That means if you test one and it is good, the rest are probably good too. And if you test one and it is bland, do not bother digging through the pile. They are all from the same batch. Move on or come back next week. One more thing about all 3 stores. The cantaloupes you see in summer, June through September, are almost always domestic, grown in California, Arizona, or Texas. The ones you see in winter and early spring are usually imported from Mexico, Guatemala, or Honduras. Imported melons travel further and are picked earlier to survive the journey. Your odds of finding a truly sweet cantaloupe are significantly higher in peak summer when domestic fruit is in season. Part 11. The old Amish way. Putting it all together. I want to leave you with the full sequence. This is what I do every single time I buy a cantaloupe, and it is what my grandmother did before me and what her mother did before her. You can do this entire process in 60 seconds, standing at the bin. First, I look at the stem end. I want a smooth, clean depression with no stem piece attached. If it has been clipped, I already know it might not be at full sweetness. If the belly button is clean and smooth, I keep going. Second, I look at the background color under the netting. I want to see gold or warm tan, not green. The more gold in the background, the longer that melon sat in the sun finishing its sugar. Third, I run my hand over the netting. I want to feel heavy raised ridges that are rough under my fingers. Prominent netting means the fruit grew vigorously. Flat or sparse netting means it did not fully develop. Fourth, I pick it up and judge the weight. I compare it to 2 or 3 others of similar size. The heaviest one stays in my hand. The light ones go back. Fifth, I flip it over and smell the blossom end from about 2 inches away. I want a sweet, musky fragrance that hits me immediately. No smell means no flavor. If it smells fermented, it has gone too far. Sixth, I press my thumb gently into the blossom end. I want a slight give that springs back. Not rock hard, not mushy, just a little cushion. Seventh, I look at the overall shape. I want symmetry. Round and balanced means the bees did their job and the sugar is distributed evenly. That is it. 7 tests, 60 seconds. And you will walk out of Walmart, Kroger, or Costco with the sweetest cantaloupe in the building. One more thing. When you get home, wash that cantaloupe before you cut it. Scrub it under running water with a brush. In 2011, contaminated cantaloupes from a farm in Colorado caused the deadliest foodborne illness outbreak in the United States in decades. 33 people died. 147 people got sick across 28 states. The bacteria was listeria. It hid in the crevices of the netting, the same beautiful netting that tells you the melon is sweet. When you cut through an unwashed cantaloupe with a knife, the blade drags whatever is living on the outside straight into the flesh you're about to eat. Wash it, every time. No exceptions. My people have picked cantaloupes by hand for generations. We have eaten them still warm from the field, standing between the rows with the juice running down to our elbows. We have cut them on back porches and served them on tables with no plates, because the rind is the plate. Every child in my community knows what a good cantaloupe tastes like, because we grew up eating melons that were picked the moment the vine let go. You can have that same experience buying from a grocery store. You just need to know what to look for. Now you do. Next time you are in the produce section, run the 7 tests. Pick the heavy, golden rough netted, sweet-smelling melon with the clean belly button and the slight give at the bottom. Bring it home, cut it open, and taste the difference. I promise you will never go back to guessing. If your grandmother had her own way of picking melons, I want to hear about it. Put it in the comments. The little family tricks are exactly the kind of knowledge that gets lost when nobody writes them down. I read every single one.